As promised, I said I would do a quick explanation on the A5. So I'm just going to take you through the sketchbook and hopefully, yeah, you might find it useful or inspiring, you know, to maybe switch up some of the tools that you're currently using in your practice. Okay, so the first few pages are usually swatcheroonies. I do this a lot, or just like annotations. So this was a swatch of the art graft blocks. I did this, but then I lost the footage somehow. I'm not very techie, so I'm not even going to try and figure out where. Okay, another swatcheroonie. So this was me playing around with neon colours, not something I've ever been in love with. I was finding more and more the colours that were attracting me in a landscape were less those kind of greens, reds, ochres, those sort of natural pigments, much like the art graft, and more towards the things that really stood out, like the water butts that the farmers use to fill up with water for cattle and things. They're usually sort of these kind of aqua colours, or the cones that you would see in these kind of neon colours, or the lights at night would be this neon. So I was really trying to drop a few hints of that into my landscapes. This was the first thing I did before these two, and I was still in the middle of a body of work, but I really wanted to test out sort of size, get something in the sketchbook. I always find if I just quickly get something in that I'm working in a new sketchbook, I become less pressure about it. It becomes less of a big deal. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but if you do, please comment below. This was the end of the grass meets glitter, which I'm still kind of working on, but I thought, oh, I'll just quickly get something in there now so that I've done it then. I'm less precious about the sketchbook and I don't overthink it. This was a visual annotation when I was on the move. It's actually on the move. I was in the car. I had my roll, my travel set with me, this one, and I was in the car. My husband was driving and I just quickly did this. I do like it. I just think I could have pushed it a lot further, but there are certainly marks in here that I absolutely love. I do like some of these marks. I need to really look at this one again and then get that in. I was testing out the travel watercolour set, which you will have seen last week. I decided to pick out the colours that I was seeing in the fells. I live in the Lake District, so driving along I thought, right, well, rather than trying to make anything specific, I think I might just do some colour annotations. But this ink thing is obviously from previous pages, but I really think it reminds me of a frog. I don't know why, but I think it's great. Those happy accidents really make me happy. So that was that. You will have seen these on a few occasions. So this was Sharpie pen. I decided to annotate some of the structures I was coming across, anything that I thought was visually interesting. So like the water butt I've used on several occasions. You've got the little towers, phone lines, barns, the infamous cone. Found this page specifically far more useful than probably any other page, and this was the page that really set the precedent for this sketchbook. So I really started to use it for annotation, visual annotations, jotting things down, coming back to the pages, jotting more things down, and I found it a really useful practice. I had done a landscape and I kept coming back to it to look at how I would use these things in one of my landscapes potentially, and just using them in different mediums, trying them out in different colours. And what I then started to do is actually annotate different sketchbooks in there. So if I've taken an idea, or an idea has been taken from another sketchbook, I will more often than not reference that sketchbook so that I never get lost. I've kept this and I haven't sort of painted over it. I've added to it, so gone back with the light with a chrome pen. You can see there it kind of looks like the light is switching on and off in different lights. And then I started to sort of put in different textures or fabrics or patterns and things just to sort of test things out in relation to other bits and bobs. So I've come back and forth to this page a lot. I really love this piece. This was just me sort of doing the basket. I had a basket of all my art stuff and it was on the bed. And I thought, oh, I'm feeling a bit sort of fidgety. I don't really know what I want to do. I can't relax. So I just started to do this, and this is one of my favorite pages because there was no kind of mapping out an idea. It was literally, I want to paint this. And I find that freedom really hard to come by now. I don't know if you'll agree, but I do. I find that mental freedom just to do something for something's sake, it can be quite difficult because I don't know what it is. I think there's something inside us all that requires us to have that needs a purpose. This page reminds me that no, don't live like that. These little blobs you'll find on a few pages, they are me just mixing the colour. I ran out of room on my palette, but I think it adds to the overall character of your sketchbook, you know, when you're breaking down the colours and mix them on the page like a portion, you know. That's also something that's quite useful. I was sat in the car park at the time and I really liked these two lights and the skies were grey. So I was trying to capture that illumination. Then I was doing some colour studies of a birch tree. And again, these mixing of the colours just at the top there and here, they're mixing the colours as well. I did these two originally in the car. This one was very different to what it was when I left the book, but I kept coming back to it and painting on it and thinking, oh, would this look good, or shall I paint it like this, and back and forth. And then I decided to start kind of breaking down the rudimentary shapes of a building in a landscape and trying to see how far I could push it. Your brain will read barn when it's only made up of sort of 3 or 4 lines. I quite like that idea, so that's when I came up with this shape. So this again was a different idea. I was messing with the chrome pens. These things, they are chrome markers and they are really, really good. They do say that it's more like mirror, but I don't see that it's mirror. It's just more like a really fancy sort of metallic pen, I'll be honest. Just keeping pages that are what I would call, yeah, all right, but then using them later to support different ideas. This was another kind of annotation of different shapes, colours, ideas to plop into landscapes. So I likened them to like landmarks, you know, when you're driving along and you're kind of figuring out where you are, and there's always that one thing that's there, like a constant within the landscape, like a building or quirky farm equipment. You'll see that as like landmarks. So this was kind of me experimenting with those ideas. If I see an artist's work that I really like, I'll just pop a little idea in there and then I'll write the name or somewhere near it just to go refer back to this artist. So I do that quite often. Again, this is an extension of the previous page. So Mary Fedden, the reason I put her down was because I really liked the way she can juxtapose a landscape painting with still life. Definitely these kind of things are important. Still life for pattern and pattern. Henry Matisse, look back at his sort of those references. We've got Robert Motherwell for still life, and then you've got Idris Murphy for landscape. So I just try and get it all in there, and sometimes I'll make shapes and think, what's that for? So I'll just maybe sort of annotate so that I can find my way back to the idea, essentially. This was another wash that I'd done so that I had something there to like plop different structures in later on, and still playing with these chrome pens. And then I started to do like these little collage works that I felt didn't work out. I cut them into little squares, and then I just started to play around with the idea, and I thought, oh, well, maybe I could use them on another piece. And so like building up layers and little things you can find your way back to, really. They'll mean nothing at the time, or you think, oh, that's an interesting idea, but you can always find your way back and build on them. Again, one of these structures, I've put a little window in. These little collage situations here, plonking them in just to see how it reads and trying to like line it up with the rest of the landscape. I thought was quite an interesting idea. I put these on to refer back because I quite like the smallness of them. I'm so used to working big that I quite liked having them small, and I was obsessed with the chrome pen by this point, as you can see, and I've gone back again and back again. Added to this the little picnic idea that so it's a picnic blanket, and I was trying to plop in different shapes into the landscape and add in a bit of chrome again. I like the idea that you have to move the piece like this to kind of see different layers, you know, it reads different in different lights. This is when I decided to make use of all the little sort of gubbins that I had, and I can later come back and work back on them. But these were just works that I didn't like, and I cut them up, and rather than throwing them out, I decided to make use of them and just play, really. This was a still life I did, the green bottle, infamous green bottle, and it was like part of a hazel tree that had died, so I cut it up and I had it in the green bottle for a while, and I was doing little studies of it, colour notations and things. I really thought it was absolutely beautiful. I decided to take the colours of the green bottle and make these little fabric swatches again. They're in pastels. So green syrup bottle, still life. It's raining today, sometimes I'll put the weather on. Layering up mixed media, so this is obviously just the wash I did, and then I went back with some pastels. I think I was deciding whether I liked this blue or not, so I thought, right, well, I'll use it in a way that I ordinarily will use this colour, and this is what I had done. And I like the fact that it's got a different surface, so like the paint is very flat and matte, but you've got this kind of iridescence on the oil pastel. I like the idea of picnic and, you know, trying to mash different patterns together. So I thought, well, a great way of doing that potentially is to use the landscape idea with like opposing patterns within sort of picnic blankets, and then I would do sort of down pan. I think this was an inspiration as an artist called Zoe Young, probably from Instagram. Sort of an apple with pattern on, quite like that idea. And then I was testing out different glitters, trying to get the best texture, so maybe adding more glitter, but until I know what it's like, I'll avoid this kind of patchiness here that you see here, and I've got more of a clean, even application there after adding more glitter. And then I annotate, like, is it 1 scoop, 2 scoops, just so I can keep track of my measurements. This was me like mixed media again. Filled behind my bedroom. It was like scorched earth actually. It was really, it was dry and crispy, and I quite like the colours, absolutely beautiful colours. Then there was a shard of light that went across the field, so I thought, well, maybe that will be quite interesting with some street lights and things. They're just little things that come into my head, and I'll just plonk them down into an available space, really. This was also one of those pages where I just kept applying, so putting things on top of the glitter. So I did a panel of glitter, and it was because I was testing out again, measuring different pots of glitter, so 1 scoop of glitter, 2, and just testing them out. Let it dry, and then I went back to it later on, and you've got graphite, you've got some water soluble, I think that might actually be paint. You've got some grey paint, and then I decided to put paint on top of the glitter here, see what that looked like. Then I got the chrome pens and pencils, and so these are pages that are really useful as well. Just to go, oh, I need to test this on glitter, rather than going in and testing it on a page you're quite happy with. Just leave yourself available, you know, pages that you can keep going back to and testing stuff on. That's also quite a useful trick. I was doing some mixed media, and I think I made a bigger one of this, an A2 piece of this idea. I really was inspired by this one with the marks, that I decided to maybe push that further and add some of that chrome pen on. It didn't really work because it doesn't go on top of oil pastel. So rather than wasting my resources, like my materials and my time doing a huge piece, to then do something like this, do it on a small, you know, small sketchbook like the A5, test them out, and then at least then you can test out other mediums on there should you wish to sort of refer back to it. I even fixed it first and then went on, and it still didn't work. So now I know that. I loved the idea of rails. I was on a drive again, and I decided to just annotate some rails and things. I think I was driving to Tesco's actually. Well, I wasn't, my husband was, that would be weird. So yeah, and I thought on the way I'll look at different railings. And the same here, I can't really remember what I was doing here actually. I haven't even dated and timed this, so that's odd. Oh, I think it was, I was again testing out this on different mediums at the chrome and seeing how that would translate. Oh yeah, I was inspired by, I think forgotten her name. She's an artist who does trees, most beautiful things you've ever seen in your life, layers, like thousands of layers. But I really wanted to try and kind of use trees more and more in my work. So I decided to sort of copy one of her pieces. Then I decided to go in with the chrome pen again and try and push that iridescence. Oh, it's just really lovely. I just find it so beautiful. I think this almost like bordering on looking like wallpaper, like crafty again. So I'm always mindful, because when you look at a piece of work and you think craft and fine art, the two could be best friends, but it's that relationship, it's that conscious decision. You need to make a decision and you need to know the sort of idea you're going for, and that will then dictate how you use the materials, when you use them and what with. So that's all experimentations. I loved it, but I do have a wallpaper vibe. I don't know what you guys think. Put that back in. This was the infancy of that idea, trying to kind of emphasize this blank space. And I loved this so much. I still refer to most of these pages, but certainly this, I don't know why. I can't really put my finger on it. I think it's the absence, you know. I just think it's a beautiful idea, and one that I am still pushing. Again, an extension of that, difference being experimenting with the water-soluble soft pastels, but equally I was testing out the good old Mod Podge. I would prefer this was literally caked in glitter, like this, but a really even layer of it, you know? I think that would be far better. It would read a lot better for me. So, but it's there, you know. If I decide that I'll do half the page to experiment with the idea and still keep the Mod Podge, I will always keep a piece that I've already done, so that like I said, I can track back through the ideas, and any point of my process or any point of the process of body of work, I can always find my way back. Again, this was the Mod Podge, and with some of the materials I was using, so like the crepe paper, oh, that feels so nice. A piece of fabric, you know, because why not? And grass, obviously. So just, I'll have it there then. So if I decide to go back again and maybe use a bit to see if for example, say if I wanted to see how charcoal would read, because it's a very different texture, I can always just sort of do this, you know, and then I could smudge it in. Does it smudge in? How does that work? Or, you know, do lines and then fix it, you know. So they're really, really useful, these little swatches. If you get like, oh, will this work? Do it in these, do it in these. Don't have them on random bits of paper. Do them in the book. You have it all together then, and you could keep using the book. You know, I still think I'll be using this for years to come, I'll be honest, you know. I was experimenting with the idea of, you know, working on top of photographs or reworking into photographs, and I was just sort of painted on top of them to see if I liked it. It's just a very, again, a very tricky balance, but one that if done right, and has been done right, can be utterly beautiful, you know, trying to combine those different mediums together. I love photography. All that remains of the original is this line of like fluffy clouds. But then I was like popping Mod Podge on. What does that look like? I'm still unsure of the Mod Podge, I'll be honest. So I'll keep persisting with it, and then I'll know if it's not working. Another page of like shape annotations. So like signage, working with these kind of really outlandish colours. This was the cows in the distance, was where it originated from. So a few dots has then blown up into a few substantial pieces that I'm yet to sort of push, but equally from that to full pages, it's quite extraordinary really. When you really sit down and think, okay, where do these ideas come from, and how they kind of are built up on top of one another, and how you might go, oh, that idea would be great with that. And I can always track back to the smallest remnants of an idea. I find that quite a beautiful thing, but it would not have been the case had it not been for me just going off piste and trying something new. My experimentation is still very much ham-fisting everything, just pulling it into my basket. This is all what excites me, you know? It's just the idea of going outside and picking out things around you and then putting them in. It's like foraging, isn't it? It's like foraging for those small ideas. This was an extension of this. So I then said to my husband in the car, as a joke actually, now imagine the field was pink, to just, you know, for a laugh. And actually I thought, yeah, imagine if the field was pink. One snide comment to my husband, not snide, but you know what I mean, one comment to my husband is then, you know, it's just, I find it just so fascinating. I love the process. My work, I think, will always be process driven. This is quite an illustrative page actually, but one that I really liked. It's trying to find pattern in everything. So I like the idea of smoke bellows out of the industrial architecture. Quite like that. I mean, it probably does read as quite like an environmental poster or something. It wasn't really meant to be that way, but you know, somebody might take inspiration from that. Yeah. Swatching. I think these were, I don't know what they were actually. Oh, no, they weren't. I'm surprised I didn't annotate them. I'm big on annotating. But these were the first soft pastels that I started to use, and then I put some Mod Podge on because it was the first time I got the Mod Podge. So that's that. These were the Caran d'Ache. In quite a few vlogs ago, I had purchased the 10 bag of water soluble Neo Colour Caran d'Ache, and I haven't used them. And I think it was the colours, the outlet, like those really cool kind of almost plasticky colours. They are lovely and they're great to work with. I have to emphasise this, but I was thinking, oh, well, maybe I should try and use them more. But I couldn't use them, so I ended up having to give them to my nephew. And then I've obviously got my trip to New York, so I decided to have a look at some of the pencils. And then I was just doing swatching of all my coloured pencils, which I then picked out the ones I really liked and then just decided to square off the ones that I was going to pop in my roll. So I thought, actually, wouldn't it be useful to have a full swatcheroonie of all the colours, the colouring pencils that I've got, so that if ever I have an idea, I can always come back to this again and go, oh yeah. I know a lot of artists keep these on their walls and things, but I find those types of practices too visually stimulating for me, and not in a good way. I find myself getting distracted. So I keep my walls relatively bare unless I am working on like a final piece or a body of work. Then I might put things up, but I had these pictures up before, little inspirations of different landscapes, different textures within the landscape of the sea and things, and it was great. But I just wasn't using them enough to, they weren't becoming useful. I was becoming used to them being there. I never felt myself kind of reach for them. If they're not going to do any good, then I'll just get rid of them. So I'll pop these in there. So if ever I'm sort of struggling for inspiration, the first place I'll look is this. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that gave you a bit more of a comprehensive explanation. All right, guys, I will see you soon.